This is the 2022 Ford Mustang GT, and today you're going to learn everything you need to know about the 2022 Mustang. I'm going to be talking to you about all of the different trims that are available, options for underneath the hood, what's going on with different performance packages, and what's new in the 21 versus the 22, which there are a few small changes from the 21 to the 22 model. Not a ton of them, but enough to make you think, this actually could be a nice one to go for this year. Now, some of the new packages include the white appearance package, as well as the new stealth package. So it's going to be essentially an all-white look for that ICE appearance package, which looks unbelievable. Now on top of that, there are a few new colors for the Mustang for the 2022 model year, including mischievous purple, which is kind of mischievous. Now, this one in behind me has a few things that are special. It's got the Velocity blue exterior, and it's got the red interior. So if Spider-Man were to have a car, I would say this is probably it, because this is the 401 Mustang GT with the GT Performance package. So we'll get into that one in a little bit, but this thing is an absolute beauty. I do want to thank you guys so much for helping to support the channel. Like, it's been growing like crazy since I started it in April of 2020, so thank you so much. Once the channel hits 10,000 subscribers, going to be doing a few different giveaways, giving away a dash cam, as well as some WeatherTech floor liners, and then a car cleaning kit. So 3 individual giveaways, but let's dive into it, unpack the GT, and see what's going on with the 2022 model. Now, I had mentioned that there were a few small changes from the 21 to the 22 Mustang, a few new color choices that are available, but outside of that, there aren't a ton of things for the body of the vehicle. The Mustang was supposed to be going through an upgrade for the 23 model year, but it looks like that's getting pushed back to the 24 model year instead. So that means that inside we're still on Ford's Sync3 system. And then this thing actually has one small change specifically to the GT trim level, which is what we're looking at here. We'll get to under the hood in just a second, but we've got our LED headlamps there. We do have fog lamps inside of this thing, and we've got sequential lighting for the back, which we'll get to in a second. Now, this specific one has the GT Performance package, which means that we've got a few things that you can't see underneath the hood, specifically looking at a larger cooler, so a larger radiator. And one of the big benefits there is that it helps to keep the vehicle a little bit cooler. Like, if you've ever driven, it's funny, there's snow behind me, but if you've ever driven a Mustang in the wintertime, or even when it's a little bit colder, you've probably noticed improved performance. And that's because there's a rush of cold air keeping all of those components cooler. So with the GT Performance package, with that larger radiator, it's just going to help in order to keep that cooling, the temperature underneath the hood a little bit cooler, again, for that improved performance. But we've got a great look overall. I do love that stripe over the top. You've got a few different options from the factory. If you're not a fan of the factory style, you could always go aftermarket. Like, there are a ton of different vinyl wrapping companies that are available that can give you all sorts of different stripes and things like that. So you have a lot of options there. But we've got our great body moldings all throughout. We've got this gorgeous front end of the vehicle. So we've got our pony badge hidden in behind, well, hidden in front of that gorgeous honeycomb grille. And there are a series of different grille styles that are available. Like, you've got your California Special. When you get into the Stealth package or that Ice White package for the 22 model year, it just gives it a completely different dynamic look. And I absolutely love the look of some of the new colors. Like, that mischievous purple is kind of an interesting one. You definitely know you're gonna see a couple people on it. We've got a light, like a bright green this year as well, which again, kind of different, but if you're a fan of different, like we had that grabber yellow last year, Ford always kind of introduces these base color changes when we go model year to model year, which is kind of a nice thing. All right, for the 2022 Mustang, we've got a series of different style rims and tire sizes that are going to be available, depending on which version of the vehicle you're in. Now, this is the GT 401A specifically, but the reason why we've got this split spoke rim the way that we've got it is because this one's got the GT Performance package. So one other part of the performance pack that you can't see is we've also got these Brembo brakes. So it's 6-piston calipers, Brembo brakes, which is going to help us with our braking performance. And that's useful for the GT Performance package because of some of the other tunings and other things that are done inside of this thing. But one of the great things about having those higher performance brakes on the front end, like, yeah, this thing is rear-wheel drive, but one of the benefits of having those higher performance brakes is as you go to brake, all of that weight's transferred from the back of the vehicle into the front of the vehicle. So these higher performance brakes means improved performance. Inside of the GT Performance Pack, we are a Pirelli P0 tire inside of this thing. And you've got a series of different options. Like, if you wanted to upgrade yourself, obviously aftermarket, tons of options with some great rubber that is available. Now, the tire size in general, it's going to be anywhere from a 17-inch in the 100 EcoBoost up to a 20-inch with different style rims and different tire choices and things like that. Again, depending on which version of the vehicle you go for. Inside of the GT, we're going to be at least an 18-inch tire, like I said, all the way up to those 20-inch with different style rims. Now, part of the GT Performance Pack, things that you can't see. I already mentioned the Brembo brakes underneath. We've got our K-brace underneath there as well, again, to help us with some added stability. Now, because we do have the GT Performance Pack inside of this thing, it also does have unique tuning. So we've got E-Pass chassis tuning and a few others, again, leading to that overall better performance. So if you're contemplating taking your vehicle out on the track, you definitely want to look at an option with this. So with that GT Performance Package, if you're never going to be tracking it, you don't necessarily have to go that route. And it's the same way with the EcoBoost. The EcoBoost, you can get the high performance package in it, but if you're not planning on doing any sort of tracking with it, you're gonna get a couple points in the horsepower. So it's gonna be a matter of preference whether you go that route. So horsepower bump inside of the EcoBoost, no change with the GT Performance Pack inside of the GT version of the Mustang. But overall, great styling, great look. We've got our 5-liter badge along the side, and then very similar to the bottom part of the lip of the front bumper there, we've got a nice black highlight going all throughout the side of the vehicle. Nice plastic feel there. So because of the vehicle that we're in, we do have intelligent access, which means that we can push this in order to lock the door just right on the outside. We can slide our hand in order to unlock, and that's as long as we've got the key fob on us. But taking a peek along the side, we've got this gorgeous red highlight matching what's going on with the interior there. On the seat, we've got this beautiful red-black stitching. It's kind of contrasted one to the other, which is definitely amazing. Along the door, you might just be able to make it out, but we do have some ambient light. So ambient light there in our cup holders and a few other spots, just to give us that more kind of beautiful look. And we do have welcome lighting inside of this thing. Along the door, we do have some seat memory buttons, which is great. We do have the option of folding or adjusting our side view mirrors and then window up and down. Tiny little bit of storage space along the door itself. And because this is the premium, I mentioned we do have the outside lights, but we do have our Mustang scuff plate there. So we've got our beautiful pony look. The seats themselves, they might be power, might be manual, just depending on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in. But at the very minimum, we can go forwards, backwards, up and down. We can adjust our lumbar support, and then we can use this in order to bring the seat forwards and backwards as necessary. Get to that back seat in a second. Just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got a series of other options. So this one here is going to let us turn on our fog lamps. We can adjust what's going on with our running lamps, increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. And then we've got this little hidden component. So compartment, which is neat. So not a lot of people actually know about this thing. It's kind of nice. And then we've also got a trunk release there. The steering wheel itself is going to be a manual telescoping. So the telescoping part is just on the left-hand side of the wheel. So just kind of make it out there. And down. These things are going to be the adjustable, the fully removable trays. So the thermoplastic rubber tray directly from the factory. We've got our pony badge there. And we do also have this little lever. We're just gonna pull that. We'll get to the interior in a second. Let's take a peek underneath the hood of this bad boy. Absolutely love this thing. We've got our hood scoops along the very top there. Nice look. And then moving forward. So gorgeous, look at this pony. Beautiful pony there inside of this black honeycomb grille. It just pops and looks really nice. We do have the option for the ice white package or the stealth package in the 2022 model, which just gives it such a unique look. But opening up the hood, I'm just going to shift this off to the left and up she goes. Inside, and here it is. So this is the 5-liter V8 engine that's going to be standard inside of the GT version of the Mustang. So incredible look, great performance overall. Because this is the GT Performance Pack, we've got our strut brace that's painted black along the very top, and we've got a nice metallic highlight on that brace. And then even moving down, so we do have a cover for that 5-liter engine, and we've got a nice look. So powered by Ford with that 5-liter badge right in the middle. Now, the Mustang does have quite a few different choices for the engine. We've got the EcoBoost, we've got the high performance EcoBoost package, we've got the 5-liter V8, and then we've also got the Mach1. So the Mach1 is going to be 470 horsepower, 410 pound-feet of torque, versus the 5-liter V8. We actually lost a few horsepower from the 21 to the 22, so it's 450 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. So we're kind of all over the place power-wise, and then of course you've obviously got your Shelby GT500. That thing is an absolute beauty. Unfortunately, I don't have access to one of those things just yet, but lots of options underneath the hood here. And taking a peek, there is a ton of space right underneath. So if you wanted to throw in some aftermarket things, like an aftermarket supercharger, to kind of get you up to that GT500 performance, you could definitely do it. There's a ton of space available, and there are a lot of great kits that are available from some aftermarket performance places. We can easily top up fluids if we need to. Checking our oil is also very easy. And then we've got easy access to a few other things. So our battery along the very top there. But overall look and styling inside of this thing, I absolutely love. I am a huge fan of this thing. The roar that you get inside of this pony is unbelievable. Absolutely beautiful. Like the showstopper red interior, I was in a Mustang last year that had this, so I saw the red interior for the first time, and it's actually growing on me the more and more I see it. It is really nice, especially from the change of what we'd normally see, which would usually be the ebony interior instead. But this thing does look absolutely beautiful. Now, a few things to point out about this specific trim. It's the 401A version of the vehicle, which means that we've got a fully digital dash. So it's the GT, obviously. When we get into the EcoBoost, we look at the EcoBoost 201A. It's going to have that same digital screen. We get into the Mach1, same idea. It's going to be this fully digital 12-inch cluster screen, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now, a few things to point out. We do have some micro red stitching right along the very top of the dash as we move across down the center stack there. And obviously into the seat itself, we do have that micro red stitching. It does look really sharp, and it contrasts nicely with that red that we've got along the driver passenger door. And we do have like a carbon fiber type of look along the left-hand side, moving through part of the dash into that passenger side right above the glove compartment there. It looks really sharp. Now, depending on whether you're in the GT or the EcoBoost, it's going to dictate what gauges you might have. At a very minimum, we're going to have our oil pressure, and then we've got our vacuum gauge inside of the GT versus a turbo gauge when we're inside of the EcoBoost version of the vehicle. But it does look great overall. Now, this is just going to be a basic walk around of the steering wheel, the media screen, and a few other things. But if you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, like you want to dive in deep to the technology here, learn more about setting up an iPhone, Android, whatever the case may be, check down below because I've put together some crazy comprehensive videos on how all of these things work. So a ton of options that are available, but let's go through some of the basics. As part of the Ford Co-Pilot package, we do have our lane keeping system. So that's the one that's gently going to nudge us back into our lane or just give us a little bit of a steering wheel shake if we start to veer over without signaling. We will at a minimum have regular cruise control, but because this is the 401A GT, we do also have our adaptive cruise control, and that's part of the Ford Safe and Smart package. So we've got our adaptive cruise as well as factory navigation. So that package is available in the rest of the Mustang lineup, but the adaptive cruise is an unbelievable system. Like, especially when we look at, so this specific one is the 10-speed automatic transmission. We do have the option for either the 6-speed or the 10-speed, but I'll touch base on that one in a second. But because we are in the 10-speed, I guess while I'm here, we do have paddle shifters inside of this thing. So we've got our minus on the left and our plus on the right-hand side. We can adjust what's going on with our windshield wipers very simply on top of that. Now, we do have a series of different pads and things like that that are going to control a few things. We've got a voice command prompt, which at a very minimum is going to let us at least change songs and radio stations using our voice. And we've got our pony badge, which gives us a ton of other options. Like, it's actually kind of ridiculous. I want to show you some of the highlights there. So pony button, really, really nice, and there are so many different options that are available here. So starting off, we've got our My Mode and Show Status. As you can see there, we've got a few different options that are available. So as we use the toggle shifters to go through different modes, as you can see there, we've got our Normal versus our Sport Mode versus our Track Mode versus our Drag. So each mode, as you can see there, will do something different. We can actually customize this thing so that it does look different for every mode, or we can have it stay the same for every mode. So we've got a few different options there. Easily press back there. So we're going to, let's just save this bad boy out. Boom, there we go. Jump back into our pony, and we've got our exhaust mode. So a series of different options for our exhaust. Let's hop outside and you can listen to what those sound like. So it is nice that we've got so many options. We've got our quiet mode, normal, sport, track. We've also got our quiet start, so we can toggle the system on, and then we can set what time the quiet exhaust is going to be on. This is only going to be the option if you've got the active valve exhaust. So if that's not in your vehicle whatsoever, this option just won't be there. You can't, could you do something aftermarket? Technically yes, but it's not going to be the same as if you were to get the factory active valve exhaust. So if you want that system, get it from the time of ordering from the factory, because it's a crazy expensive amount to get something that's not as good as the factory option. We've got some track options, so we've got our acceleration timer, brake performance, line locks, lap timers, different start options, so for different countdowns and things like that. So if you're taking this thing on the track, we've got some killer apps that are available. And same idea, so we've got some different options for our gauges. Move back from there into our pony mode, and we can configure your gauges. So if you want to show the air-fuel ratio, or oil temperature, oil pressure, and a few others. So you've got 3 individual options that are available there, so select whichever ones you like. Let's go vacuum, and then we'll move back out and show gauges. Boom. So we do have the option of showing individual gauges there, which is definitely a nice thing. And as you saw there, we've got the flexibility to customize which gauges show up. So that is pretty dang neat, right? I love all the different options and all the flexibility that's inside of this thing. One thing about the steering wheel, it is going to be a manual adjust just by our right knee. So we do have, there we go, our little release there. So down, and it's a telescopic wheel, so we can go in and out, up and down as necessary. Click that bad boy, lock it back into place. But overall, great feel, great functionality. Because we're in the 401A, we also do have a heated steering wheel inside of this thing, which is amazing. Now, one other thing that's kind of unique off to the left side, I was showing you earlier, but we do have this little hidden compartment, sunglasses holder, change, whatever the case may be. You'd be surprised at the number of people that don't even realize that their Mustang has that. So if you've got it, utilize it because it's there. But overall styling, this thing is great. I love the pony badge in the middle of the wheel. We've got these gorgeous metallic highlights, which you can see inside of the gauges where the vents are, and even along the dash itself, we do have those beautiful metallic highlights that are carried through different parts of the vehicle, so it does look fairly sharp. Now the Sync media screen, it still is Ford's Sync 3 screen. When we get into the 100 EcoBoost or the 300A GT, that's going to just be the old school Sync screen. So it's definitely worth it if you want to get into a Mustang. At least go for the 101 EcoBoost or the 301 GT. It's just a better bang for your buck. You've got toggle switches with different sport mode, driving modes, and steering modes and things like that. So it definitely is worth at least that minimum upgrade. But having said that, if you don't care about any of that technology stuff, you could look at just the base package instead as your entry-level Mustang. So if you're a first-time buyer, that would probably be a good option for you. But one thing, everybody that I know, for the most part, that goes for the EcoBoost Mustang first, within a year, they want to upgrade to the GT. So something to think about there. I know budget-wise, the GT versus the EcoBoost, it is a fairly big jump, but just knowing you can get great performance out of the EcoBoost, because we could do stage 1 ECU tunes and a number of things to give us better performance. A lot of options available. But getting back to the media screen for a second, like I said, it's still on Ford's Sync 3 system, which means that we've got wired, I should say, not wireless yet. Wireless in Sync 4, wired in Sync 3. So it's a wired Sync 3 system, which means that we've got wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So we've got our factory maps inside of this specific trim because of the packages we've got. You can get factory navigation if you want to, or you can just run off of either Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze directly through this middle screen, which is always a nice thing. When we get into the lower trims of the EcoBoost, so the regular EcoBoost 100, 101, and then the 300 and the 301, it's going to be a cloth seat. When we're in the premium EcoBoost or the premium GT, the Mach1, whatever the case may be, we will have a leather seat instead. And one of the beautiful things about that leather seat, heated and ventilated front seats, which is amazing, especially with these leather seats. They can get a tiny little bit toasty in the summertime, so it is nice to know that we've got that as an option. One thing to think about is that when we get into the premium, we do have the option for Recaro leather seats. So if we want something that hugs the body a little bit nicer, those Recaros are unbelievable. So if you're tracking your Mustang, I definitely recommend looking at the Recaro seats. But there's a caveat to those seats, because with the Recaros, we don't have the option for heated or ventilated seats whatsoever. Like even inside of this, if we're in the 401 Mustang and we've got the Recaro seats, you don't have the option for those heated ventilated. Those Recaros will never be heated ventilated whatsoever. So if you want those heated ventilated seats, just make sure that you go for something that's not the Recaros, but those things are so comfortable all at the same time. Now, we do have our push button start, and that's going to be the same whether we're in the 6 or the 10 speed. I just pressed the button there and it's thrown me into accessory mode. So it's turned the vehicle on without starting the engine up. So that's one of the cool things because we don't have to fully start this thing. And it's useful as I'm demonstrating just so we don't hear the roar of this 5-liter, but I gotta do it, I gotta do it. So nice, so nice. Go back into the accessory mode there again. But overall, great look. We've got our volume rocker along the left-hand side, tuning rocker on the right. We can change between songs or radio stations. We can turn our audio on or off. We've got our sound settings, so a hot button press in order to get to our treble, mid-range bass, and a few other options. We can eject if we've got a CD there. It's still kind of neat that this thing's got a CD player in it. We do have heated and ventilated front seats just because of the trim level of the vehicle that we're in. We would have heated seats inside of the 101 EcoBoost as well as the 301 GT. So it's nice that we've got that as an option. We do have dual zone climate control, so we can have it different for the driver passenger side if we want to. We can turn that system off. We've got some base options for our climate control. And we've got a series of different toggle switches. So a few switches available. So first one, well, obviously this isn't a toggle switch. That's our engine start stop button. So it's blinking right now because we're in accessory mode. But if we hit the brake, fire the vehicle up, you can hear that rumble. Those bad boys come to life, but we can easily adjust that out. We do have our 4-way blinkers. We've got one just right underneath the shifter. Can you see it there? Ah, there we go, perfect. So right underneath the shifter there, so we've got our traction control, and then we've got a series of different modes. So for our steering, we've got our normal versus sport, and then comfort steering, and then different drive modes. So drive modes, we've got our normal, sport, track mode, as well as our drag strip. And then if you were to customize a mode, you would also have the option for your My mode essentially. So you can create different modes if you'd like to. We do have a USB power point there, and then there also is a 12-volt power point, so we can easily plug things in as necessary. Because this is the 10-speed automatic transmission, we don't have launch control. We would have to be in the manual mode in order to get that as an option. If you go for the manual in the EcoBoost or the GT, it's going to be the GetRag D4. And then when you get into the Mach1 or above, it's going to be the Tremec 6-speed instead. So I know there's a lot of people about the D4 versus the Tremec. If you're going for just the base GT, you could technically do an aftermarket upgrade to that Tremec instead if you want to. No option from the factory whatsoever, unfortunately, but it is great overall. It is nice. You've got a great amount of control inside of the 10-speed automatic. When you look at the 6-speed manual transmission, like I said, we've got our launch control there as an option, which is amazing. We do have our parking brake there, and it is an auto parking brake, or manual parking brake, I should say. And we do have the flexibility to remote start using the key fob, or we can use the Ford Pass app in either Google or iPhone devices, so I should say Android or iPhone devices, in order to remote start that way. So we can remote start through the Ford Pass app. And as I mentioned, because this is the automatic, we would have remote start inside of the 6-speed. Definitely not going to have remote start as an option. It's just not there. So the downside of, I would definitely say the downside of having remote start in a manual transmission is if you forget to keep it in neutral. So if it's in gear and you go to remote start, your car is friggin' gone. So that's why you're never going to really see a remote start inside of a manual. And then moving down, we do have a few cup holders. So we've got 2 main cup holders there, cup holder in the back. I want to show you something a little bit unique. So let me pop you out here a little bit and drop you down. So as you can see there, a few different cup holders. They do feature ambient light, and we can choose the color of the light. But one thing I want to show you is this little hidden compartment right there. So you might just be able to make it out down there. Let me pull this thing up a bit more. So we've got a little hole there. So if for whatever reason our key fob's died and we need to get into the vehicle, all we're going to do is take our key fob and we're going to just put it inside of that hole there. The car is going to recognize our fob and it's going to fire it up for us. And then as we move down a little bit more, we do also have 2 more power points inside of the armrest. So we've got a USB, regular USB, as well as a 12-volt power point there, and a bunch of storage space underneath there as well. As we start to move up overhead, we do have our auto-dimming rearview mirror. We've got some base controls for our cabin lights, home link system, so we can program in a garage door opener if we've got one at home. We've got a business card holder. We've got our vanity mirror that also does have built-in lights. And then this thing can extend out a tiny little bit, but realistically, the way that I would normally be sitting like this, that's gonna block out all the sun that might potentially be hitting my eyes as I go. And then with the seat set up the way that I would normally have it set up, like this, I've got about 3.5 inches of headspace there. So the seat can drop down a little bit more. surprisingly large amount more. When it's down, I'm about 4.5 roughly inches of headspace up overhead. So a good amount of space here. The seats themselves might be manual, might be power, just depending on how you have this thing configured. One thing that's always going to be manual no matter what would be adjusting the backrest. So we can pull, there's a little lever by our left-hand side there in order to move this thing backwards or forwards as necessary. But overall, this thing is fairly nice. All right, now the Mustang technically does have 2 individual rows. Looking at the second row here though, like this is kind of ridiculous. Like I'm 6 feet tall, driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. And here, let me show you something here. There is pretty much no chance. So with the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall, I'm not fitting back here. I have like no space back here whatsoever. So literally like 0 headspace. If you've got kids or you've got some friends who have drawn the short straw, they will technically be able to fit back here. Is this gonna be super uncomfortable for the ride? Like me, 6 feet tall, I probably would not want to sit back here, like unless I'm like laying back here like this. That's realistically the only way I'm gonna comfortably be able to fit in the second row of the Mustang. But the seats themselves are fairly comfortable. One interesting thing, inside of the fastback, we could actually fold these seats down. There's a little tab by the seat. We can easily fold down as necessary for the left versus the right side, which is kind of a nice thing. You do have the option inside of the Mach1 version of the vehicle to get the second row seat delete. So if you're going to be taking this thing off-road, well, off-road, if you're going to be taking this thing on the track, I should say, not off-road. I don't know if I'd do off-road in a Mustang. But if you were to take this thing on the track, you definitely want to look at the option for that seat delete to save you a few extra pounds. You could technically just do it aftermarket yourself, rip the seats out, and at least that way you still do have the seat as an option, or you can save a couple bucks and do it directly from the factory instead. Filling up fuel inside of the Mustang is straightforward. So along our driver's side, and it's a capless system, just insert your fuel hose, fill up, and you're good to go. Now, when it comes down to the fuel quality, the horsepower and torque specs that we were looking at under the hood are achieved using a premium fuel. So do you need to use a premium fuel like 93 specific? You don't have to. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation for the EcoBoost as well as the GT and technically the Mach1 is just regular 87, so 87 fuel. You don't need to use a higher premium fuel, but if you do, you'll absolutely notice a difference in the horsepower and the torque and the general performance when you do. Now, here's the caveat to that. So if you're taking this thing out on the track, you definitely want to use a higher performance. Like a 93 is ideal taking this thing on the track. You don't have to, like I said, 87 is a minimum recommendation. When you get into that GT 500 though, you're definitely going to want to use that 93 octane instead. But series of different options. What I'd recommend is just so you can see what I'm talking about, so you don't think I'm crazy, try driving for 500 kilometers with the regular 87. Your next 500 kilometers, so your next tank, fill up again using a premium fuel. And I guarantee you're gonna feel the difference by using that higher quality fuel instead. The Mustang has a series of different options for the rear axle ratio, which is also known as the final drive ratio. It's going to depend on a few things. It's whether you're in the EcoBoost versus the GT, the 6-speed versus the 10-speed, and then what other packages you've got available inside of your vehicle. Because this is going to be the GT Performance Pack with the 10-speed, we do have a 3.55 Torsen differential. If we did have the 6-speed instead, it would be a 373, and that's the highest option that we've got from the factory, is going to be a 373 rear differential. So what the final drive ratio means is how many times does that drive shaft have to rotate in order for the wheels to spin once. So it's either going to be that 355, the 373 when we're in the GT, the 331, whatever the case may be, but we have a series of different options that are available. The higher that number is, the better your acceleration is going to be, but it's also going to negatively impact your fuel performance. So if you're taking the vehicle on the track, and that's really the intended purpose, the 373 is ideal, the 410 aftermarket, even better option. One other thing that we can look at is the Magneride damping system. And the Magneride is available, you've got a few options available which packages that it's in, but Magneride is going to stiffen up the suspension. So it uses magnetic particles in the suspension system itself in order to give you a stiffer ride when it's needed. So if you're just kind of casually driving, it's going to be a nice loose suspension. So things are going to feel nice. But when you go into a corner, so left, right, whatever the case may be, and you're really trying to grip the road a bit more, those magnetic particles will stiffen up and then it's going to help you with body roll. So when you're turning, rather than you're turning like this and your body's kind of on the side, it's going to give you a little bit of a more upright. So you're going to kind of be centered a little bit more, just going to help you grip that road a little bit better for, again, improved handling inside of this thing. The rear end of the Mustang is absolutely beautiful, and this build is fairly close to the ideal build that I would go for inside of the Mustang GT. I'd probably go for the darker blue instead, but I mean, the setup that we've got on the interior, that bright red, I love it. Like that contrast between the blue and the red, I said it earlier, this is like the Spider-Man car. Like we've got our blue, red, black highlights and things like that all throughout. Absolutely beautiful. But we do have our stripe right along the top, moving all the way down through the bumper there. We do have a quad tip exhaust because we're in the GT version, and this specific one has the active valve performance exhaust, which sounds unbelievable. And one of the cool things about the active valve exhaust is that Borla and a few other companies, they do have exhaust tips that work in conjunction with the active valve exhaust, which is amazing. Now, a few things to point out. We do have our backup camera, which is going to be standard. Because we're in the GT, we've got our gorgeous GT badge along the back, and we've got a release as well for the trunk, which we'll get to in just a moment. Because we're in the 401A, we do have our rear parking sensors, and then just above, you can see we've got a very unique spoiler. And the reason why is because this thing's got, again, the GT Performance Package, which gives us this absolutely beautiful spoiler. Normally it would just be like a little deck lid one, which is kind of just raises up a tiny little bit. But this thing is a performance wing, not a huge one though. So one of the benefits of having this wing the way it is creates a little bit of added downforce. Again, you want to hug that road a little bit more, especially trying to take this thing on a track. But overall, the styling in the back is incredible. We've got our sequential LED taillights there as well, so driver, passenger side. I love the look of this thing though. It's amazing. Taking a peek at the key fob for the vehicle, so it's unchanged from the 21 to the 22 model year. We've got our unlock and our lock button. Remote start might be there, depending on whether or not you have the 6-speed or the 10-speed automatic. 6-speed manual, you're not going to have remote start for obvious reasons. We've got our trunk release, horn or panic alarm, and then we've also got our emergency access key. So if you ever need to get inside the vehicle because the fob's died, that's where you're going to make it happen. Now, we can also remote start directly through the fob very simply, and all we do is press the lock button once, circle button twice. Oh, yes. And then canceling remote start, we just press that circle button again once, and remote start is canceled, and it literally is that simple. Now, if we take a peek at the key fob along the very bottom of the fob, we've got this button there where we can double press that in order to unlock the trunk area. But one of the nice things about the Mustang, so inside, just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, there's a button there that we can push to unlock this thing. And then just underneath the GT badge, so right above where a plate would be, we just push that, up she goes. All right, now taking a peek at the trunk area of the vehicle, there actually is a surprising amount of space inside of this thing. So series of different measurements that are showing up. We've got one for the lower and the upper lip, as well as for the interior for depth and things like that. Now we do have the flexibility of folding down the back row seats if we want to, and that's just done from the inside. So all we're gonna do, inside, just gonna move our driver's seat forward. And we've got a little release. We're just gonna pull that and down it goes. So it is nice to know that we can easily fold down the seats if we need to. Now, that's not going to be available in the fastback as well as the convertible. It's strictly going to be available in the fastback version of the vehicle. So convertible seats, those rear seats, are never going to be able to fold down. All right, and taking a peek, so nothing along the left side other than a little bit of storage. Off to the right side, we do have a subwoofer. We do also have a little tab so we can pull this up, and this tray is fully removable, but just underneath, we do have our tire inflator kit. Now, we do have the option for a mini spare tire, depending on how the rest of the vehicle is configured. Because this thing is the GT Performance Pack, we don't have the option for that mini spare tire from the factory whatsoever. And then just a little bit further off, we do also have our white spigot. So if we ever need to fill up using a jerry can, we're going there first to make it happen. Now, a few things, toggle-wise, we're gonna make sure that I'm in the sport steering as well as the sport mode. It's gonna be really, really nice. I talk about that sport mode all the time. What it's going to do is it's going to hold onto the RPM, so it's going to let it rev up a little bit higher, giving you an improved performance. So sportier performance, amazing, amazing feel to this thing. So good. I've got the exhaust in the track mode right now as well. So I'll change it out and then you'll hear different rumbles as we go. Oh, this is nice. Now, a few things. Because this is the 10-speed automatic transmission, this thing doesn't have a few things that you're going to find in some of the other versions of the vehicle. Oh, this is going to be trouble. Oh, no. This is going to be trouble. Oh, this is nice. So we can jump between different modes. So I just kind of flip the shifter up. So got myself out of the manual driving modes, but we still do have the flexibility of adjusting the gear that we're in as we go, just using the minus and plus buttons on the steering column itself. Obviously, I mentioned in the 10-speed automatic transmission, we do have the option in the Mustang for a 6-speed manual instead, and that manual is really, really nice. Like, especially when you get into the Mach1 version of the vehicle, because that's when we get into the, there she is. Oh, that's a nice rumble. Oh, that's a nice rumble. As I was saying, with the 6-speed manual transmission, the GT is going to be the GetRag D4. When we look at the option for the Mach1, that's going to be the Tremec instead. So Tremec, definitely better shifting there. It's way nicer in comparison to the regular GT. Not saying that the shifting inside of the GT is clunky or anything like that, but it's just a smoother shifting point inside of the other version of the vehicle. Now, one thing and one reason why I'm not going to push this thing too much right now, this thing's got the GT Performance package, which means that I've technically only got a summer-rated tire on this thing, so it's not going to have the greatest wheel grip by any stretch. So you're not going to hear me do burnouts, or I'm not going to do any sort of crazy driving. This is Canadian winter, realistically. So you want to make sure that, yeah, this is a Canadian winter. There's a little pothole there. I'm like, oh no, don't dent the rims. One of the interesting things about being a Ford owner is that you do also have a tire warranty. And that's going to be what you get, a generic 2-year warranty, but you can upgrade that one. One of the cool things about that warranty is that if something happens, like, let's say you hit a pothole and it breaks a rim, what's going to happen is, or breaks a tire, pops a tire, whatever the case may be, you do have road hazard coverage. So you would be able to get part of the tire covered off, or tire replacement. I think it's like $250, which typically is like more than the cost of a single replacement tire, depending on which version of the tires you've got. This thing's nice. This thing's really nice. Okay, let's go a little slower. It's just something that you don't want to do. Like, going slow in a Mustang GT, they just don't go together whatsoever. It's like jumbo shrimp. It's like an oxymoron, essentially. Like, it's just not something you want to do. But, I mean, having said that, so this thing's got the GT Performance package in there, which means that I've got a summer-rated tire inside of this thing. So it handles incredibly well in the summertime. In the wintertime, when roads are a little bit colder, you might do a little bit of fishtailing, like a tiny little bit. So you got to be careful. Obviously, being in Canada, or even if you're in any of those northern states and you are going to be using a Mustang year-round, you want to make sure that if you're using it year-round, you get winter tires. You can also throw some things in the back, so like boxes or bags of salt and things like that, essentially something to weigh it down, because the Mustang is only available, the gas Mustang is only available rear-wheel drive. We do have the option for the Mach-E Mustang, which is the electric Mustang that Ford introduced in 2021, and that thing is unbelievable. I've done some walk-around videos on that one as well, so if you're looking for a walk-around on the electric Mustang, check down below, but amazing, amazing ride. The Mustang is available as the EcoBoost, as the GT, we've got the Mach1, and then the GT 500, so a lot of different options available. We do have a number of different things that we could look at as well. So we've got either the fastback, which is what this bad boy is, or you could get the convertible. The fastback, you're not going to have the option for a moonroof inside of the thing whatsoever. It's strictly going to be a convertible, but it's pretty dang nice all at the same time. Like the convertible, if you're never going to take your vehicle on the track whatsoever, and you're using it just for regular street driving, you could look at, if you're never going to track it, go for the convertible. Like, it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, if you're going to be tracking your Mustang instead, one of the things you want to look at is making sure you definitely get the fastback version of the car, because you can't take any sort of a convertible on the track safely. I love the look of this thing though, like that digital screen. And one of the cool things about the digital screen is you've got the flexibility to completely change around the look and dynamics of it. So you can change around the color scheme, so many different things you can change around, but, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice, here we go. All right, gonna take this thing for a quick little rip, but because it's not broken in, I'm not gonna go too crazy with it. I'm gonna pull back a little bit, and the roads are a little bit cold, so let's see how she goes. 2 100 and beyond. I feel like Buzz Lightyear right now. All right, so I've got, oh, there we go, okay. So I've got the system turned on. There we go, yeah, that's not gonna work. Traffic is crazy, traffic is crazy. All right, so I've got the adaptive cruise control system turned on. I've got this speed technically right now set at 100. The vehicle though is like I'm going less than 60. And the reason why is because the cars that are in front of me are going significantly slower than highway speed. And that's one of the beautiful parts of the adaptive cruise system. So it's part of the Ford Safe and Smart package inside of the Mustang. And it's going to be included in the 4.1 version of the GT, but it's that set and forget it cruise. Like I've got it set to 100. The cars in front of me are starting to speed up. So my car is starting to speed up, and watch this. Speeding up even more. I gotta get to do this. God, that's so good. So good. Oh my God, I love this thing. All right, I've also got the lane keeping system turned on as well. So that's the one that as I start to veer over, yeah, it's gonna gently nudge me back into the lane. I love the sound of that Mustang. Oh, and that's just the sport mode. When you get into the track mode, same thing. Changes up the complete dynamics of the sound of the ride. It is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Really nice. These guys did a great job in this car. I freaking love it. I love it. I'm just gonna pull off here. Back her up. Now, this one does have the reverse sensing system. We've got the option for the reverse sensors, no forward sensing system in this thing whatsoever. But watch this reverse sensor. And there she is. That was a 360 VR look at the 2022 Mustang going for a test drive. What did you think? I love this car, love the seats, love the look, the layout. This thing is absolutely amazing. And the more and more I drive this thing, the more and more in love with it I fall. But if you have any questions though, you ran into any problems, you want some clarifications, or if you're thinking about getting a Mustang, drop down in the comment section below. Reach out to me on social media. We can bounce ideas off of each other. If you're in Ontario, reach out to me as well because I am local to Toronto. And if you've got a neat car, something that you want me to shoot, reach out, let's hook up, let's collaborate a little bit. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your social networks. And until I see you next time, take care.